FreekStyle, an EA Sports big game. I remember Def Jam Fight for New York being pretty good, so I'm sure this one is going to be just as good, right? Oh. So welcome to the world of FreekStyle, an EA Sports big game, and from a developer that you may or may not know, Redwood Studios, or more importantly, their later studio name, Visceral Studios. Yes, these were the guys that would eventually make Dead Space, but before they're in their infancy, they were in-house in EA, working on many different sports titles, even a James Bond game or two. But here was their answer to SSX on bikes. It's a motocross game where you can play as many different famous motocross characters. I sadly didn't know anyone, still don't really know much about the motocross scene. But the aim of this game is to try and get in first place, score some tricks along the way, and, well, try and not crash out. Very edgy, hard rock soundtrack goes along, and as said before, I think they were just trying to follow the formula of SSX and hoping that people would enjoy this. Is FreekStyle good? Is it bad? I'll let you guys know, but for one reason or another, this hard rock game definitely is hard for one reason. So if you're new around here, I am a PS2 collector. I'm not only trying to collect all my PS2 games though, but trying to beat and log full playthroughs and credit compilations, or even a successful victory of a story mode, season mode, in every title that's ever been released on the system. With FreekStyle, it's a sports racing type game. Through all the different options I had on this main menu, circuit was the most sensible choice, where I would eventually beat the circuit mode and fully complete whatever the circuit mode had entailed. So we went with that, and we're ready to get going. Of course, as always, we use my classic nickname, Koos, and we'll see just truly what the game had in store. When you do start your game, though, you are introduced with the whole introduction of the game itself, a commentator breaking down the rules, saying, get ready for this, get ready for action, are you going to be the true FreekStyle? Pulling you in, all this edgy looking gameplay. They knew what they were doing. I think like they were ready for action, ready for all this zaniness, and hell, let's get ready, let's get going. Let's see if we can really get our freak on. After the intro, you are given a character choice screen. These were the characters that were represented by famous motocross champions, or at least current motocross racers at the time. You're able to choose whoever you like. You'll notice that there are stats, and every character has their own bike and their own costumes that you can unlock as well. Everyone has their own edgy opening. You can decide who you want to go with. I didn't really know much about every character, every stat, what it all meant, but you just went with your gut, you went with what you wanted, who you liked, and get cracking. I eventually do go with a character. Leanne was who I went with. I believe Leanne is a motocross, or was at the time, a motocross commentator for the sport. That's why she may be a part of the game. I decided I wanted to go with her. Maybe for her stats, maybe for other reasons, who knows. But then you also get to pick a bike, and as you can see, the more bikes you unlock, the different stats change different bonuses on your character. Once again, I didn't know what was the most important thing to invest in at the time, and you're only given the first bike anyway, so that's what we go with. And then as you can see, there are multiple different stages, 14 to be exact, and my beat goal requirements were there in front of me. From stages 1 to 14, I was ready, I was prepared, I was going to have to beat every one of these tracks. The controls are simple, as you can see as well. X to accelerate, square to boost, tweak your tricks, and the shoulder buttons to do tricks. Obviously the analog stick also is used for your movement, but the game in itself is easily broken down into a few simple buttons. With the first stage, you are put into a race. And as you can see here, we have a lineup. There are 6 races involved. And to advance to Moto 2, we need to finish in the top 3. At the moment, we're in Moto 1. And the simple thing the game is telling us is we need to get to Moto 2. FreekStyle is a racing game. Like most racing games you've probably seen or at least played or even watched. Multiple races. Our goal is to get to the top 3. But in between that, we are able to do tricks to try and build up our boost bar. The boost bar is shown in the bottom left corner. The orange bar near the FreekStyle logo on the right hand side is how much boost you have. When you achieve and do better tricks, there is a bar on the left hand side to build up your FreekStyle meter to be able to pull off FreekStyle moves. As you can clearly see, the very first few minutes of the game, I'm doing absolutely terrible. The controls are very, very precise. The slightest tweak on an analog stick, well, at least for me, it really sent the character moving left and right. I was absolutely struggling at first with this. But like most things, it's teething troubles. We eventually get used to the controls of the game. A couple more minutes in, and then I start feeling a bit better about myself. Still wasn't doing ultimately the best, but I was getting the idea of how to drive. I was getting the idea how to do the little trick systems, which is obviously the most important thing in this game. If you don't do tricks, you can't build up your boost bar. If you're not getting a boost bar, you're not keeping up with the pack. And obviously, that's the main thing we need to do. That's all there is really to this game, though. It is a lot of just racing, tricks, and making sure you don't crash out. All at the same time, combos are important. You try and tweak a few tricks into one jump. Gives you way more points, way more boost, and above all, keeps you momentum and ahead of the game. So during our first Moto 1 race and getting a feel of the gameplay itself, the boost bar being filled most of the time, I'm able to achieve a first place victory on our first race. Moto 1 is complete, and after beating Moto 1, it's on to Moto 2. Moto 2 plays exactly like Moto 1, advance to the next stage by getting into the top 3. Can't say more than that. The racing and racers in itself are a little bit better this time round. Maybe. No idea really. But combo, tricks, bonus points, and above all, that yellow boost bar is what we need to keep going to achieve the sweet, sweet victory. Very much like Moto 1, Moto 2 keeps you on your toes. As long as I got into the top 3, I was able to pass through. And once you've done Moto 1, Moto 2, you have to stay on the same track again. But now we've been taken to the main event. Making it to the main event as well, you get a cutscene during Rivals.
But if I just give out the trophies, I'll never see you.
But above all, we have to do a very important thing now. To move on to the next track, finish in first. The game gets very demanding very early on. We got seconds and thirds, sometimes a first, but with this game, you need to achieve first place on racetracks to move on. There is no letting you off with second place and getting enough points overall on a circuit. This is where the true demanding gameplay of FreekStyle comes into play. So getting first, it starts to show how demanding FreekStyle becomes. We do eventually get a first place though, and we are able to move on to the next circuit. Still, the game doesn't really truly show how demanding it is just yet, but before we move on to the next circuit, you're given some other little things. You can perform tricks to unlock more costumes, plus it shows you other things you have unlocked. But most importantly, when you do beat a new course during a free race course, you come to the stats screen and can level up stats once again. These are predetermined little nodes that I try my best to use up to the best of my, pool choices. I don't want to waste any little leftover nuggets of leveling up, So I make sure that everything gets leveled up evenly, or at least everything is leveled up to a point to move on to the next stage. So this is how the first half of FreekStyle plays out after this. We do multiple circuits, but have to do 3 races on each circuit. Each race course will make you do the same thing that we just showed you previously. You have to become 3rd in Moto 1, at least 3rd in Moto 2, and get 1st place again on the final of the racetrack. Like most racing games as well, you really are going to learn by doing. The more times you race, you start seeing the AI going off course, you discover shortcuts yourself, you also realize the best places to do jumps, tricks, and score some extra combos to keep that boost bar filled up. And with every stage of the game being played, you feel better, but some trial and error is needed to really achieve that feel and sense of victory on some of these stages. By no means, though, am I any real pro at these racing games, but I do try my best to perform to the best of my abilities. Here is an example of Freak Out, by the way. Once you fill out that red bar, you can have an infinite amount of boost as long as you keep chaining tricks after tricks after tricks. It does mean that you're going at a faster speed, though, and you also need to keep planning a route where you're able to do grabs, flips, tricks to make sure that red bar doesn't deplete and you lose your Freak Out meter. It helps because infinite boost keeps you in the lead, and it prevents the AI from catching up to you and eventually overtaking you, meaning you lose the race. Some of the stages also are actually pretty nice. I actually really enjoyed this hedge mazy garden vibe. Giant gnomes, big open explorative jumps, and glass planes to jump through. Some of them are really enjoyable, but also because it's also narrow and frustrating, you don't want to be crashing. Crashing really is like a game over, restart the race again. At least you can restart the circuit finals from the beginning again without getting punished. You don't need to go back to Moto 1 and replay Moto 1, Moto 2 to eventually beat Moto Grand Final. If that was the case, this game would be even more brutally hard than it is. But at the moment, this game is definitely at its medium to quite challenging difficulty as we try and get 1st place on each of these courses. And upon the final racetrack of the game, I find some more sneaky shortcuts on every map. And this was the final level of the Moto Circuit race section. Just before the halfway point, I get my final 1st place victory and achieve sweet, sweet victory. I'd finally won multiple different circuits on multiple different maps. There is then an interlude level before the next part of the game, where our goal is no longer to get 1st place, but to try and achieve a set score. As you can see in the top right, the goal is to get 200,000 points. It seemed doable and it seemed fair, but you also have a time limit of 3 minutes, remember? And I hadn't really fully understood the combo system as well. It was taking some time, and eventually I decided to come up with this formula of keeping the Freak Out meter filled. I was boosting around more, I was able to keep boosting and keep my speed up, and I found out that if I kept comboing and holding skills, I may just be able to pull off just enough points to keep myself going. And it was working quite well, this system. As you can see here, I eventually just go between the 2 ramps and pull off a trick after trick after trick. As long as I don't crash out, my combo meter was staying full, and also my FreekStyle meter was staying full. 200,000 points is still quite demanding though. As the last few seconds of one of my better runs was coming to an end, I was just about to scrape to sweet, sweet victory. One more trick was needed. I squeeze it in just in the nick of time, land it, and achieve the sweet 200,000 points needed. There was a reason I think they do this intermission though. Tricks were about to become one of the most important requirements to beat the rest of this game. And this game was just about to get a hell of a lot harder. After riding over the hump of the game, which was the circuit mode and our first trick challenge mode, what happens for the second half of the game? We've only really done 8 out of the courses. Now, what do the other 8 courses do? Sadly, we are now doing the same tracks again. Yes, we have to sadly replay the 6 tracks we just raced on. Maybe it's a time constraint, maybe it was just a way to fill out the game. But there's one important factor now that we have to do. We no longer have to win 3 different races to move on to the next game. Instead, what we need to do now is a very more strict single challenge rule. To advance to the next track, we need to finish first and also achieve the points asked. If you don't do both these requirements, you have to redo the race again. It sounds easy on paper, but remember, I was struggling already with trying to get the points of this game. So now, you had to remember all the good ramps you got your points off of. Remember to chain it together, and then carry on and make sure that you had the right amount to complete the stage. Also, this game has a fatigue system. Once you've done a trick once, it gets half the points for the rest of the race. So you need to be very aware of the tricks you've done, haven't done, and don't repeat them, because otherwise you're not going to get those beloved points that you need to get the sweet, sweet victory for every course. Our first track, though, goes pretty well. There's a lot of ways to earn points. There's a lot of ways to combo because there's huge, huge airtime moments, and they really help you get those ×2s, those chains that you need to quickly get the burst points to achieve victory. This means that on my first trip on returning on this map, it goes very quickly, very well. I'm very happy with the progress of it, and I get slapped on to the next stage. Even on the second stage, it doesn't really take me too long as well. There are, once again, loads of ramp opportunities, loads of time to do tricks, and freak styling all the way to the end made me get an insanely good score that the track was asking for. But it was my return to the third track that the difficulty slapped me in the face. This track took me a very long time. Even with the huge airtime that you get at the beginning of the stage, the goal requirement has changed drastically. We were trying to go for 300,000, and now the demanding goal score of 500,000 appears. This was a way different feel and vibe than the last 2 tracks were, and I needed to get every point wherever I could, and as always, try and achieve getting first place. I think that's the sneaky thing about this set of races. You could probably find a real nice area and farm to get the points, to get the goal, but they added the first place requirement as well. And that's what really makes it challenging. Trying to find and chain every hidden ramp, every hidden shortcut to make sure that you could get the victory needed to beat the next level and achieve the next one as well. This was one of my kryptonites though. This level took me a good 2-3 hours to beat on its own. There was just so much going on that really annoyed me, frustrated me. Even when I was trying to keep a FreekStyle meter up to keep my boost in gear and to make sure I was in the lead, there are so many shortcuts that the game, I think, needs you to do that are such high risk, high reward. But if you don't do them, you don't keep ahead of the pack, you don't get the points needed. And there's so many moments where you'll get wiped out. One of the points here where you're jumping past these branches, you can clip them so easily and get wiped out. You had to be so careful. And there's so many ramps where there's barely an opportunity to do a grab that it gets rough. And also here, there is another shortcut you can take. It's a very risky one I do, and if you hit that wall there, you get wiped out. But it's a way I could keep ahead of the pack. I really need that first place, and eventually this was one of the best runs I could get going. The points were already there, I was in first place, I just had to make sure to keep my boosting gear and eventually cross the finish line safe and sound. I mean, hear for yourself just how exhausted but happy I was eventually beating this map, which did already take a good few hours.
Oh. Oh my God. God, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ,
It's
man.
just that
Holy
simple.
frick, man. Oh. Oh, man, my hands were sweating. Jesus.
So then it was the hedge maze again. This one also is quite awkward. Luckily the points is a lot less than this one. I think the devs knew that there weren't really many opportunities to do a lot of jumps or leaps or tricks, so they let you off. But still, another quite challenging one. As you saw as well, I forgot to mention, your placement can really help get you some points. First place gets you 10,000, second gets you 5, everything else gets you such a minimal bonus. Maintaining a good place helps you get those crucial bonus points you may need to get your true victory on these maps. But luckily, this map wasn't too much of as much a strain as the other one. And as you can see also, I just were under the point requirements, but getting that first place, which you need anyway, get you more points to truly get what you need. I don't know how the other players get more points. Maybe there's an exploit to get better points in this game, but I couldn't find it. I didn't know what the exploit was. If there was one to earn points, this game is just brutally difficult for, well, maybe a sub-racer like me. I think, though, what maybe the devs were trying to do is a sense of true accomplishment. Like, there's a moment here where I'm about to win. I'm in second, he's in first. I have to pull off, like, a FreekStyle to make sure I get an infinite boost. I nearly crash out, but then there's these epic moments where I can do this if I just get a few more points, stay in first, just cross over that finish line. It's really stressful sometimes, this game. It's not a very long game, to say, but to get these goals and to get these achievements under your belt, it's crazy. There's only minimal seconds I ever get to achieve victory. And every time you can see my face, how shocked I am, and how stressful and painful this experience actually can be. The final stage also is very fair as well. I think the goal requirement, the points, is another fair one. I don't know why you have to get 500,000 points on one of the maps when all the rest are a lot fairer. The main issue about this map is more that there's a lot of ways that you can wipe you out. But there are some insane shortcuts that the AI just don't use, which really can help you cross the finish line quickly and achieve victory. Loads of different ways to cut corners, to cut different parts of the map. Maintaining your boost is obviously the most important thing. As you can see here, I freak out and actually start panicking under pressure a lot near the end. But the amount of shortcuts you can do on this final map is so good that you can make up for a lot of real bad mistakes, time issues, and everything like that. Also, I'm just able to scrape by and get the points I need. It's actually insane how close I do it. And even then, even with all those horrible mass mistakes at the end, I still had another 15 seconds under my belt. This one isn't too bad of a map either. But there it was. I did the entire loop of maps again. It doesn't seem like it's a difficult game, though. I think that's the weird thing about FreekStyle. You can watch people play this and think, I don't know why you're struggling with this. But it's when you play it and when you experience it for yourself. Maybe it was just me, but I feel like there's a lot of common speculation about this game. That this game looks great to play. This game looks amazing to watch. But when you actually are trying to beat the game gets crazy. But once you do that, you get a congratulations message. You've completed FreekStyle Circuit. You're the ultimate freak. Now you've gained access to the sickest, sweetest FreekStyle venue around, the Burbs. Technically, I could have said I was beaten on this game. But, hell, there was one map left. Why not carry on? Also, there wasn't really a credit roll left. So, one of my rules in my challenge is, if there is content left without a credit roll, we have to keep going. So the Burbs is another one of these special trick maps. It's huge, it's massive. And there is one requirement for this one. The requirement is to get points. You need to get quite an amazing amount of points, though. And one of the goals is mostly to try and find a sweet spot to get the 400,000 points. You have 3 minutes like last time on the other trick point map. It's just trying to find the right place, the right moment, and get to that goal. There is actually some really nice airtime moments that you can do on this map, and if you can keep that freak out meter filled up, it doesn't take long for you to be able to stretch out the grabs and keep your airtime to achieve what at first seems like quite a daunting goal, but in the end becomes quite an easy one. And as said, I eventually get a good vibe. I get a good thing going, and I get the points. I'm able to lift my hands off the controller and call this a good one. They wanted 400,000 points. There is a top score of 500,000, but that's if you really want to do it. The game asked for me to get to the 400,000. I did it. I was wondering if there was credits after this, after you achieve the 400,000 point victory. There isn't. You can just save, and that is it. It will then take you back to pick any level you like. Why you want to do that, I don't actually know. But that's it. That's all there is to FreekStyle. There is, however, an options menu with the credits in, so after achieving all the beats, I let the credits roll, and I can give you my final opinions of the game. On the surface, FreekStyle looks great. It's definitely something that a lot of racing fans probably would enjoy watching, especially the movement of it. It looks high octane, there's like edgy looking characters, the designs look nice, the maps look nice. But it's when you start playing it, you start to see the real crack showing. One of the first real problems of it is that there's only 6 race maps. They then tried to flesh it out by doing the beat circuit 1, beat motor circuit 2, then beat the final circuit race, getting a third place, and then having to get a first place. There's no real point system in the circuit mode. At the end of the day, you've got to be the best out of every circuit to move on. The racing and getting the first place isn't the most notoriously hard part of it, though. I'm fine with that. It's more that it gets boring and repetitive. It's the second half, though, that does get more demanding. Maybe some of you are watching this right now, though, and going, I don't know what you're on about. It looks okay. I don't know why you couldn't do this, or don't know why you're saying this is a hard game. I feel FreekStyle is one of those games where people might have played it and enjoyed it, played multiplayer with their friends and family, but when you're trying to do what I'm trying to do, which is beat a game, and it's happened a lot with other games, that there's games that people enjoy, but when you try and beat a game, it becomes incredibly difficult. And the point system and also the first place requirements on the later half on the same maps gets really stressful and incredibly hard on the hands. You've got to make sure you're doing the right combos all the time. You've got to make sure you're boosting all the time. You've got to make sure you're in the right place at the right time. FreekStyle isn't overly a bad game in design, but it's a bad game in gameplay and having to actually play it. If it wasn't for the sheer difficulty and the sheer demanding playstyle that it needs, I think it would have been a lot better. I've played the SSX games. You don't need to get first in everything to move on and beat more maps. And also the points maps are split up against the racing maps. This one, having to make you do it every time on every map, first place or points and first place, made it all the more challenging. But that's my opinions at the end of the day. Remember that. This is what one person might find as a difficult game, another person may find as a cakewalk in the park. Sorry if you thought this game was easy yourself, but hey, it's an opinion, and at the end of the day, I'm just giving you mine. Also, a quick one just to wrap things up. During my playthroughs, my members of the community do some amazing, funny little box art edits. I thought I'd just quickly show it off at the end of the game now. There's the FreekStyle box art, but also we have the Coos-style box art edit done by, this one was done by Undercode. There are a few lovely little hidden jokes in it. As you can see, EA Max. I'm quite a Pepsi Max fan, actually, if I do have to say so myself. My channel and my own challenge is fueled by the lovely beverage, and you may see it a lot popping up in my videos or in character names and whatsoever. Anyway, that is FreekStyle. Like I said before, remember, everything's an opinion, but this game is very challenging, I think, for most people out there. Give it a go if you think you're up for it, and let me know. Or maybe you've already played this and know how challenging this is. Either way, this was quite a game in my challenge. Hopefully, we won't be having too many hard rocks along the way. But of course, there's hoping and then there's doing. Until then, thanks for watching this video, everyone. Take care.